Recording in progress. Recording in progress.
Okay, Sheila. Yeah, can I hear from Kula, please? Can you hear me? Yeah. I can see a few hands. I asked for Kula Godwin, please.
Good morning, sir. Good morning,
Yeah,
doctor.
morning, please. Yeah, thank
Yes,
you.
doctor. Doctor, for me, over the years now, from 10 to 15 years now, the weather condition has drastically changed. Because these days, the sun intensity for me is very, very high. I believe that climate change has seriously occurred. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I want you to see more in terms of uh, uh, our resources, our forests,
No, I said I know technical issues. No.
our rivers. If you leave some river in the villages in 10 years, streams is more famous. Hello, Agbe Amos, please.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yes. Well, over the years, I've noticed a lot of climate change. Like presently, we used to experience hammer-time. As you can see, there's no hammer-time since December to now. There's no hammer-time, and there's a drastic shortage of rainfall in our environments. So that is what I've noticed over 10 years or more ago. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Hello?
thank you very much for that. I can see some very interesting observations in the comment section. Changes in land use from predominantly agricultural to residential. So if you live around Makurdi, I believe a large percentage of people around here before 1999, if you just live across, if you just move across Abukinshulwa Road, the current owner-occupier was completely empty. And down that road, there was nothing. George's quarters, nothing was happening there. Those were used to be farms and all of that. You pass lots of bushes and all of that before you get to Gadi. So, hello. I can also see another person here. Decline in wildlife populations and extinction of species, habitat fragmentation, and ecosystem imbalance, reduced pollination populations affecting food systems. And then the very interesting one I find here is from Jennifer Ngodo, right? Agbe. All the streams in my village, Baonga, are dried up, including the wells. So those are the practical issues in environmental standards we'll be discussing in this lecture. And it's critical that environmental scientists will look at our environment and see how we can minimize, conserve, curtail all of this. The interesting issue about what is happening is the large population growth. The whole idea about environmental sustainability is how do we use our resources in such a way that our children unborn can still meet the world and survive. The challenges we have with herdsmen or farmer herdsmen clashes also has to do with degradation in our environments and how we are conserving our resources. So in terms of the content for this module, we'll be dealing with the need for natural resource management. What are the threats? We'll have debates. These things we're talking about, are they real? Some people don't really, some people are pessimists, some people are moderates, and some other ones are optimistic that with invention in science, we should be able to take care of the environment. We'll ask ourselves, what are the natural resources we have? We already are used to these things in terms of our daily lives: water, forest, land, soil, and would try to give a description on how it fits into our ecosystem. I think in the next lecture, not this one, we would talk on biological diversity. Lots of maybe animals we used to see many years ago, we don't see them anymore. Either because of hunting or the issues we have with our environment. The environments they find themselves are no longer conducive for them, or several other issues. Is it important? Do we need to conserve these resources? I can see someone here from Biosa. He said they are experiencing species extinction and seasonal climate change. Another very interesting one here from Dapa Evans. Giant trees are cut down for wood and timber. Thick forests are disappearing. So those are still some of the issues that we have in our society. And then we'll talk of how biodiversity conservation can be sustained. Where it's not present, how we can look at establishing new populations. We'll look at the different ways of conservation. What are the learning outcomes for this particular model? We'll try to understand how our global natural resources are under threat at the end of the day. At the end of this class, you will understand that. You understand the nature of natural resources they provide, understand the biological. You understand the variety of approach available for conservation of biodiversity, and we should be able to identify this biodiversity. We've had several animals or more animals go extinct in the last couple of years. Why do we necessarily need to conserve these animals? Why do we need to protect them? Maybe let me hear your thoughts on that, please. Yeah, can I hear some suggestions on that? I can see Julius Musa. Can I hear your thoughts? Julius Musa, you have your hand up. Okay. Isaac.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Julius Musa. Good morning.
Let me hear you. Okay, yes,
Good
please.
morning. Can you hear me?
Morning.
Yeah. Good
yes,
morning,
please.
sir.
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. All right. Your question is, why should we preserve or conserve this species, right?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
All right. So we conserve these species in order to ensure their continuity for research sake. Studies have been carried out to be helpful to humans in the aspect of medicine, in the aspect of medicine, the aspect of environmental continuity, because there is close relationship between the fauna and the flora. That is it. They have a kind of mutualism between them. The fauna gives to the flora and the flora to the fauna. So if you preserve such species, you are going to keep the very nature of the environment in that aspect, and hence you get so many benefits, such as the medicine aspect of it, and then in the continuity of so many findings that will be coming out as regards to researches. And when you come to keeping a cultural, what is it called now, artifact or heritage or something to keep to our unborn children, like you said, they'll come and say, oh, there was once vultures, there was once, what is it now, giraffe, there was one this in so and so location, they are home to this and they are home to that. I think it is very, very beautiful. That's aside their mutual, the plant and animal mutualism together. So that's my contribution, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Let me read, I think, some of the comments. We can also have some answers right at the chat box as well. Someone has said, from Charles Okori, we must conserve to balance the food chain for zoological evidence for tourism. I agree. Agba Stephen Ben, as custodians of the earth, we have to be responsible and accountable. This is reflected in how we conserve and preserve other inhabitants of the earth. Unfortunately, here in Nigeria, we haven't done much in terms of looking seriously at conservation. 20, 30 years ago, Yankari Game Reserve had lots of animals, several game reserves across the country, but now these animals have almost gone extinct in those environments. And we don't even have to go far within Africa. You have lots of tourists in places like Kenya, Uganda. Sometime last year, we were in the Akagera National Park, and it was beautiful to see zebras, to see several animals, crocodiles, lions, tigers, in just a 2-hour tour of the place, that particular natural environment. In their natural environment, you could see lions eat up their prey, watch them do it. It was such a beautiful experience, and you can imagine the sorts of revenue it has created. For another reason we could look at is in terms of drug discovery and applications of medicine, lots of these herbs. We're talking animals, but herbs are also going extinct. Plants, trees, 50, 100 or plants or herbs they could use to cure certain ailments. We are not careful. Most of those things are require resources to thin and other goods and services.
Prof, your audio is off. We can't hear you again.
No, I got thrown out by the network. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, can you still see my slides?
No, sir. It's only your picture we can see.
Okay, let me. I'm using two computers for this, so I hope I can sort this out later.
Yeah, the slide is loading.
I believe you can see it.
Yeah, we can see the
Okay,
slide
okay,
now.
okay, great. So in terms of human resources, we need food, we need resources for food, water, shelter, clothing, and other goods of services. Like I mentioned earlier, the population growth is estimated at 8.1 billion, and that's an increase of 0.1% from 2023. In Nigeria, I still remember, I think the last census said we had, I can't remember the details, but from 80 something million, we are estimated to be around 300 million now. I doubt that, but imagine that our natural resources like land, water, forests have not grown, but we've had an exponential increase in population. What will be the effect of that if we don't start planning and managing the resources very well? Would have issues. I mean, 30 years ago, we didn't have much of the Fulani, or should I say, the farmer herdsman clashes. Let it not sound political. The desertification in the north and across the Sahara Desert, and we're already beginning to experience that. I grew up in Makodi in the 80s. What we see as River Benue now is not the same anymore. It's shrinking, except we have issues of flooding, maybe from the Cameroon dams and all of that. More fishing across those communities, loss of species will be lost and all of that. Because of the growth in economy, capital income has really increased, especially in the developed world. And the US, we can see in terms of global population 4.2, but they are using 27% of the global resource consumption. Again, because of the population and rapid increase in industrialization, we're dealing with lots of pollution now. Governments can't take care of waste, and those wastes naturally have effect on the environment, either land, water, even our forests. Lots of industrial chemicals are used now, detergents, fertilizers, plastics, industrial waste, cars. Imagine the number of cars we used to have in Nigeria against now in 20s. But now we have these huge issues, and they naturally have an effect on environment. So the question is, are we coming to a looming environmental crisis? And the cause will be destruction of resources on which we depend. Can the earth support our unlimited population growth? Can our resources last forever? There's a school of thought, I will talk about it, that believes that at some point, I mean, we don't have to bother about these things. The earth has a way of balancing itself out. We'll talk about it at some point in the lecture. But the reality is that our health and well-being depends on the availability and quality of these resources. Availability is one. Many years ago, I think it would be okay to drink from many of our rivers and streams. But with the high population, people not having the right places of disposal, a lot is happening around the river banks now. So quality of these resources is also an issue. So it is vital to conserve and manage these resources so that they are available to meet the needs of future conservation and sustainable resource management. A few issues we've had in Nigeria in the last couple of years is fuel scarcity, power shortages, flooding in our cities. Makurdi especially, we've experienced lots of flood. And we've also had desert encroachment across the northern states. The reality is these are warning signs of what we are doing to our environment. And they are all tied to our population growth, our resource use, as well as population, because we are growing exponentially fast. And so lots of studies have been done. In 1972, a team from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology published results of a computer-based modeling exercise where they called it the limits to growth. And the question they were asking were, can the Earth support rising population? Can the Earth support increasing standards of living for its people through 2050? Can the Earth support the human population based on current growth rates through this century to the year 2100? And what this model did, computer modeling are very interesting. They look at how things are happening and predict what might happen in the future. And the reality is that our population, physical resources, our rate of use, because of the population increase, you need food production. That food production puts a lot of pressure on the land. You need residential buildings or land for residential buildings to solve those issues of it. A lot of industrial input, bringing about pollution and several attendant issues. In Nigeria in the 80s and 70s, we didn't, I still recall, NEPAD, it was called then. We make an announcement on when they are going to be, when you would not have power available. But those infrastructures have not changed. A lot of our power generation comes from hydro. If we're losing those sources, how do we create alternative for the rising population? So those are the issues. So those infrastructures we still have can't sustain our growth. And that is why this area of study, it's very important for us in Nigeria, because the reality is, even though we complain about our government and politicians, most of the civil servants don't even have that knowledge to even deal with and advise government on building a sustainable path. And so with this project, the Sustainable Procurement Environmental and Social Enhancement Project, we expect to create a pool of experts that can go into communities, even if you're not working in government, create awareness, and see how we can make sure that we use our natural resources sustainably so that our future generation would not suffer. You can look at this later, but it shows a trend of how our resources here are depleting while population is growing. We also have pollution growing up. We also have industrial output. As the industrial output is increasing, you have pollution increasing. Our industrial output also brings about pollution in our environment that also affects even the resources that we have. And it's all an ecosystem. And environmental sustainability experts need to bring this in focus, especially in Africa, advising governments, setting up NGOs, working for NGOs with with the expertise to enlighten the populace on what we are likely to experience. Of course, there are, like I say, there are different opinions about whether this is really real, whether it's, I mean, in the last couple of years, we've heard Trump have his doubts about the effect of climate change in the world. And there are an army of people that also have those sort of beliefs. So to counter criticisms that this is too pessimistic, we should also remember that in developed countries, there's a lot of population control. The world also believes that, if I use 1 hectare to produce 10 bags of rice with technology, I should be able to use that 1 hectare to create 70 bags of rice. So growth in agricultural technologies can also have an effect on this balance. They've run several additional scenarios incorporating beneficial interventions and developments. But the reality is, under any scenario, the Earth population will still overshoot our capacity to handle the challenges we have. And the big problem is population growth and waste and pollution associated agricultural and industrial processes. Conclusions came in for severe criticism from economists and others. Some assumed that the assumptions were too pessimistic. Government intervention on new technology will allow this limit to be avoided. In our own case, we definitely don't have a country that has planned well. Developed countries plan population control and several other ways to limit the effects of climate change on the people and think about conservation. But it is on us to develop our own customized, or should I say, something that suits our own environments. So in the 50 years since publication, the study has been revisited both by the original study team and others. And the assumptions and projected trends still compared with historical data in the factors model are closely following the scenario that was observed, and it exceeded critical limits on some factors earlier than projected. So those studies have also shown that the projections that were made in 1973, in some cases, we even have, in reality, more severe effects on society. Why have we not heard about this? They'll say current obsession with the scientists, politicians, and the media. In my own case, it's not based on research, but I would say if you are looking for your next meal in Nigeria, you would bother lead. So within the scientific community, there are 3 different positions on it: optimist, pessimist, and moderates. The optimist believes that technology can solve our current resource and environmental problems. In 2020, I was doing a research in Alberta, Canada, and it was from single-cell proteins, production of single-cell proteins from coal. The idea is you take coal, an inorganic material, convert it to syngas, which is methane and CO2, and then use a microorganism to produce animal protein. So you know how fast microorganisms grow. In 20 minutes, that microorganism multiplies at a very fast rate. And the results we got from our experiments is still on. The project is still on, even after I left the project. Is that what you can get from 100 hectares of land, you can produce the same equivalent in 100 by 100 factory. And so the optimists look at this sort of technology and believe that we don't have to worry about the environment. Technology will solve the issues. If we have pollution issues, we use technology to also solve it. So necessity plus human ingenuity brings about invention. As we face extinction, we would look for solutions. And the key to success will be the availability of clean energy. And then we need to increase food production. Fish farming, like I said, use of lab-grown food like algae, that's what I was discussing about. In developed world as well, you see them, our broilers, or typically the broilers we eat here are between 5 weeks, or they could produce a broiler in 2 weeks through genetically modified organisms. So that is the belief of the optimists. Pessimists are those who believe, look, where if we don't take urgent action, we are gone. They call themselves, we are being realists. Technology cannot solve all our problems. Technology is very unpredictable. You hope that this happens, and then all of a sudden some other things happen and you can't solve it. And in terms of our population growth, or in terms of our increase in per capita income, we would need more things. So at the end of the day, they believe that it's really important that we take this seriously. At certain point, overwhelming rates of population begin. Resource consumption. Under these conditions, the problems created increase. If we come down to Nigeria and look at the population dynamics across the different regions in the country, I would look at the population increase in the north. Maybe because of religion, religious reasons, they are allowed 4 wives. Many years ago, I had Hassan buy me a car in 2008. Hassan didn't have a job, but Hassan had 3 or 4 wives. So how does government plan? How does a nation state plan when we don't have control over our population? Those are the questions the pessimists are asking. On the optimist end, he's saying, come on, technology will solve the problem. But the pessimist is saying, at the rate at which we are growing, at the rate at which our resource consumption is happening, there's no way technology or the solutions to the problems will be faster than the problems being created. And then there are moderates. There are people who are in between. They share concerns of pessimists, but argue much can be done to avert catastrophe if actions are taken early. They believe that there needs to be more technology change, also shift to a more sustainable culture, living within Earth's limits. We have different beliefs in cultural way of behaving. The Native Americans practice a sustainable way of living. They don't take more than what they need. Can we have a society where people are not taking more than what they need because they are thinking of future generations to live? Critics, a number of factors that will make this very difficult to achieve. It's like I say, human nature, we'll talk of religion, the ethics of many people, economics, existing laws. So the moderates suggest a number of approaches. One of such is the biological principles of sustainability as natural systems work. conservation in terms of using resources efficiently. How much do we as a people say, if that is enough for me, I don't have to waste it. How much do we recycle? The things we are able to recycle, how much are we using it? Our new renewable resource use, how much? I think someone has a question. Someone has just raised his hand up. Okay, I can't see it anymore. But restoration, population control, and management adaptability. These are all ways or biological principles or scientific principles we can put in place to minimize this catastrophe we are expecting. Do we have any questions? Okay, if there are none, we've given a broad okay, Omolabi Oluwakemi, please. Omolabi, you have your hand up. You have the floor, please.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you very much. Omolabi, sir. Hello, sir. Can you hear me, sir? Hello.
Go ahead and speak.
Okay. Okay. Go on. I can hear you.
On the that can use in the lab. So my question is more food that have been produced in the laboratory causes to the system. So I just want to ask the specialist, do we say we should encourage GMO production of food, or what are just the ways that we can live?
Hello, sorry, I lost. Hello. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I lost my network. But if I understand the last question, it's the effect of GMO products on human health and all of that. If I got you right, am I correct?
Yes, you are correct, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So I have maybe I'm biased because I've worked in this field. I believe that we in the scientific community have a huge role to play. If the West produces GMO products and send into Africa, we have a responsibility as scientists to develop our capacities to test these products and decide whether they are good enough for our population. So I don't believe that when these GMO goods are produced, we should just accept them without asking questions. But I also have a problem with people without any scientific knowledge standing to say, no, I don't believe in this. The effect is to harm us. And so we should have nothing to do with GMOs. I have modified enzymes before in the lab. And I mean, I have also done several tests. For example, in that particular research, we're producing animal feed. A conspiracy theorist will say, well, when we produce those animal feeds and we give to our animals, from that, we'll be able to have several, we'll probably have some diseases, and the plan is to reduce our population and all of that. From the one I worked on, there was nothing like that. In fact, it was a technology they had used in the 70s before, but it was the price of wheat that threw them out of business, because the sources of animal feed from wheat in the 70s and 80s was so good that it became unprofitable to be able to produce animal feed by modifying enzymes, and it couldn't compete. But now we're coming down to increase land use and decrease natural resources. A group of investors decided to revitalize that technology again. And it was used in the UK, feeding animal feed across the world. What we see in China today in terms of growth in the economy has to do with science. So it's a disservice to us in Africa, because this is very prevalent in Africa, where we feel anything that is done by the West is, yes, there could be some concerns raised, but our responsibility shouldn't be to reject it fully, but to make sure that when these are produced, we have the right labs to look at this ourselves, take our time, and decide to use them. So that's my personal opinion on this. A lot of people believe, oh, the population growth in Africa is a big threat to the world. But we as a people should also think that that is having an effect on us. What are we doing about it? China has over 1 billion people, China and India. And at some point, China sat as a nation to say, this is what we need to do. So I think our concern shouldn't be more of what they are trying to do to us, but developing capacity to be able to accept, test, validate, and decide not to use in some cases. Even in the West, they also have people who are against, they'll tell you it's only organic. But the reality is the organic way of producing goods is way more expensive. Pardon? So at the end of the day, economics is about profits. So of course, the person who is trying to make money at all costs might not have your best interest at heart. But if we have the right consumer protection agencies, have the right labs to do these testings, we can be skeptical, but we shouldn't be against it. That's my personal opinion. Thank you. So dive into what natural resources are and try to classify natural resources. To understand the challenges of sustainable resource management, first we need to understand the nature of the resource base. And a resource is a stock of anything that has value to human beings. Without humans, resources are neutral. Value is thus an anthropogenic concept. In terms of classes, there are two main classes of resources, natural and man-made. We can look at natural resources there: air, water, soil, the minerals we have, especially in the soil, our flora, fungi, plants and trees, and then our fauna, our wildlife. And then we talk of energy goods, coal, gas, oil, hydrogen. We are very conversant with all of these resources, and these are the two broad man-made. We have thousands of man-made resources, usually made from natural resources: plastics, paper, soda, metal, rubber, refined oils, polyester, and thousands more. So basically, there are two types of natural resources. And so when we talk about sustainability, we're looking at how we can use all of these resources, especially the natural resources, sustainably. How are we using our air? Our training gives us, we have different backgrounds in environmental sustainability. We're coming from chemists, we're coming from biologists. There are many parts of this lecture that I might not be as familiar with because I'm coming from the chemistry and some microbiology aspects of this. So an environmental be able to look at each and every one of these resources and see how we can manage them properly, and see in each environment we find ourselves, what do we need to know about that environment? The challenges we face in Benue are not the challenges they face up north. The challenges we face up north are not the same challenges they face in a place like Lagos with the large industrial sector there. And so we need to see what is the effect of air in those places as against places like Makurdi. If we say in the rural areas, what is happening to our fungi, trees, and plants? It will be more, should I say, important than, say, a place like Lagos. But again, we need to have a look at that entire ecosystem and think about solution in a systems way. So natural resources occur in nature and are valuable in its natural form. Human-made resources have been created by humans using other resources, both natural and man-made, plus chemical reactions and man-made processes. Plastic polymers are formed through polymerization, a chemical process using fossil fuel feedstock. I did some work in a lab in Calgary sometime last year. I've been working with them for about 3 years, and they produce nylon 66. The company claims that they are the first company to produce bio-based nylon 66, and the production of nylon 66 from the petrochemical industry, it has a very harmful effect on greenhouse gases. And so these two young women from Russia were able to get a patent from their PhD work, and they set up a company, and they are producing nylon 66 from. So we can see that if that eventually works, that is a major breakthrough in terms of so those are the sort of things scientists are trying to do to conserve our resources. So in terms of natural resources, we have two forms: renewable and non-renewable resources. For renewable supply, resources can replenish themselves over routine. It's in finite supply, and once extracted or used, it is no longer available in the environment. An example can be minerals in soil or bedrocks or fossil fuel. We already have that threat in a place like Nigeria, where we have been depending on our oil, and it's believed that in the next 50 years, we probably wouldn't have that oil. So what happens when that happens? That's an example of a non-renewable stock. And then renewable stock, we can talk of our rivers or streams. If we use up our rivers, it's replenished by rainfall. And so that is a renewable flow. Like I mentioned earlier, my research has been in biofuels. So I have been interested in looking at all the waste we generate in our farms. How can we convert it to fuel? Interestingly, my PhD was on production of bioethanol from cassava peels. And I can tell you here that if we are serious with research in Nigeria, we can produce fuel for our cars from cassava. And that becomes a renewable source of fuel. Brazil and the US are the highest exporters of ethanol fuel. There are cars that run on 85% ethanol. Most cars, including the ones in Nigeria, any car made after 180 can run on 15% ethanol. So most of our fuel today is blended by ethanol. So imagine where we are able to develop capacity to produce fuel from a renewable source of energy. At the same time, we would need to replenish. And so one of the reasons why I picked cassava peels was because Nigeria was trying to produce ethanol from cassava, and I felt no. Cassava is the main source of food. If you start producing fuel from cassava, it means the prices of cassava will go up, the prices of food will go up, because garri, akpu, virtually most of our common meals come from cassava. So if we're looking at non-renewable sources, but waste that are generated from activities, it can be more sustainable. Someone is asking what company produces nylon 66 ozone with bi-B. So natural resources can further be classified into biotic and abiotic based on whether they are purely mineral or part of the biosphere. We have flora, forests and their products, fauna, which that's the wildlife, minerals formed from decayed matter. We all know oil is from decayed matter in soils. For the abiotic, which is non-living, we have land, we have water, we have air. Minerals such as gold, iron, and copper are also abiotic. And so this is a full classification of natural resources. We have inexhaustible resources, solar, tidal power, wind, rain, and activity. What we do, the sun will shine. So that's the bonus. Inexhaustible resources, we talk of broken down into renewable and non-renewable, as we say. From the non-renewable, if we can't renew things like nuclear energy, fossil coal, minerals. Cyclable, and this was the full version of more one, so two, three, foreign energy. So we were coming down to the basics of natural resources now and seeing how each of these contributes to our human welfare. When we talk of land and soil, agriculture, here in Benue, I still make reference to Benue because these are primary constituents. Of course, agriculture is the main thing. Over the last 30 years, we have gone through a lot in terms of food production. I don't think we are the food baskets of the nation anymore in terms of how much produce we get. Yes, it's still enough, but it's still good, but it's not enough because of different things. How do we manage this land and soil? In the 80s, we traveled to the village a lot, and what used to be forests, if you go there now, they've been, for some reason, the trees have been felled and you can see the land bed. Places that had farms have been over-farmed so much that the yields are very low. This has to do with management. We've talked of water. A lot of us here talked about how inadequate rainfall nowadays because of climate change. Our streams have all dried up. And it's strange because over the past 60 years, these streams, if you ask your parents, they'll tell you where, when they get to the stream during rainy season, at what level they are, how it swallows them. And then right now you can virtually see nothing anymore. How do we sustainably farm? How do we do irrigation farming? You know, our forests are gone. Our minerals, our food, our energy, like we said, power supply is quite a challenge now because of the issues we have mentioned. The most important natural resources, because all human activity is based on it, is land and soil. It's required for agriculture. Is required for construction of buildings. Buildings, as the population is increasing, we have to increase residential areas, and that's why we're using the land. And land is finite. Transportation infrastructure. You can imagine the dualization of the road from Abuja to it has taken some land away. So we can see transportation infrastructure, airports being built, as technology improves, as our money increases, we have industries being established on land. If you're in Jos, you go to a place like Refid, you see lots of mining activities destroying the land, very deep, indiscriminate mining activities. I think it's around Benue as well. And so this all put pressure on the land. The land basically consists of a bedrock overlaid with soil. And the soil is a combination of organic and inorganic matter. The organic components, it's about the dead and decaying animals and plants. And inorganic components, we're talking of the raw particles and the minerals we have on the land. Soil provides production of biomass through farming. The land also conserves groundwater, biodiversification, conservation by buffering activities, preservation of genetic diversity, provision of suitable habitat for flora and fauna diversity, provision of infrastructural development such as sheltering, industrial manufacturing, transportation, provision of raw materials, gravel, sand, clay, and other minerals, and safeguarding geocultural heritage by concealing and conserving archaeological remains. So these are all the services that the soil ecosystem provides, or the land ecosystem provides for humanity. What are the threats to our soil? We have the natural occurring causes like landslides. That's not very popular around here. I'm not sure, but in the US and a couple of other places, it can be horrible, where large cities can just have landslides, where soil rapidly slips down sides of slope, usually because of heavy rainfall. And so you can see half of a mountain almost disappear because it gives way from a rainfall. And it occurs in areas having high rainfall, weak soil structures, sharp gradients, and earthquakes. Another threat to soil is droughts. This kills ground cover, dries soil out, and it leads to wind erosion. We are very familiar with erosion around the southeast. Go to Enugu, lots of erosion, and it's quite difficult to reclaim those kinds of lands. In terms of droughts, look at the north. The northern part of Nigeria, the Sahara Desert has become a shadow of itself. And the population in that area are going through a lot because of the droughts they're experiencing. So drought is a huge threat to soil. Flooding caused by excess rainfall in a short period, causing surface runoff, leads to loss of vegetation, loss of soil that is swept into ground soil, and loss of nutrients that is washed out of the soil. There we have experienced that in Benue, we've experienced that in Kogi, Niger. Benue and Niger rivers have been having lots of challenges with flood. And when that happens, it has an effect on the soil. The anthropogenic causes include deforestation, clearance of land for agriculture and urban development. The agricultural plants replacing the trees cannot hold onto the soil. And without this plant cover, erosion can occur and sweep the soil into rivers. And this is quite a challenge in our communities, especially in the North Central and the South, where, I mean, if development has to happen, you clear a lot of land, but these agricultural plants are not replaced. And even if they are replaced, they cannot hold onto the soil. And so we have an environment that depends on each other. The plants are needed to protect the soil. When we think we're clearing for development, we don't know the effect it has on the soil and the threat it has on agriculture and the other services that the soil produces to us humans. Overgrazing. Overgrazing reduces ground cover, enabling erosion by wind and rain and compaction of the soil. It also reduces plant growth and water to penetration, which harms soil microbes and results in serious reductions in fertility. Again, we can see interconnection in natural resource use. We have desertification in the northern parts of Nigeria that causes them to move their flock towards us. They come in here, they have an effect on the soil because of overgrazing, and that leads to reduced yields in our crops. And it's quite a challenge to be able to deal with all of this, and that's why we're here in this class, so that we can look at all of this and advise where appropriate, or develop a systems thinking approach to predicting the problems we have as well as the solutions. One of the biggest challenges we have in Africa is dealing with the effects of things we see without looking at the overall approach. And so, if, for example, we who are here in Benue feel that, the man up north shouldn't come and graze on our land, we should also be concerned and develop a holistic approach to say, how can I help him to overcome the challenges he is facing in his place, because we're all interconnected at some point. So we need to look beyond this person is my enemy as scientists. I'm not talking as a politician or someone with sentiments, but haven't been educated on the reason why these people are doing this. You need to also understand from your own end, how can I help them to, because we're all facing the same environmental challenges. I won't go too deep into that, but we can have those discussions. This is supposed to be an open lecture for us to discuss. Overuse of some chemicals change soil composition and disrupts the balance of microorganisms in the soil. This stimulates the growth of harmful bacteria at the expense of beneficial kinds. Yes, the soil has its restorative ways, but industrialization, use of pesticides, herbicides to increase yield have another effect on the land, and this is quite a big issue. A lot of times you have government just send fertilizers to farmers. Where is the farmer education on how to use these fertilizers, how to maximize the effect of fertilizers on our soil? There was a group in the Plateau a couple of years ago, the Agricultural Services and Training Centers. They were established by some Israelis. They were brought by Jonah David Jang. And their approach to farming and effect on the communities were to conduct soil testing with very simple kits. They teach communities, take this amount of soil from your place, send it to us, and we will analyze it and tell you what you are meant to give to that soil to support the growth of your plants. And they had increased yield of over 70% for Irish potatoes and tomatoes. And at some point, I know they were making, 80 to 100 million every month selling those tomatoes across Nigeria. And so it's a scientific way of using agrochemicals. But what we have today are just chemicals coming in, not looking at the soil. I doubt if 1% of farmers in Makod, in Benue especially, do any kind of soil test to see what the effect of these chemicals are year in, year out. And that is one of the anthropogenic causes and threats to soil. Bare land is produced to soil due to cultivation for arable crops. In hot and dry climate, this can result in desertification. Construction, we've said that before. The effects of soil erosion, loss of arable land. Soil erosion removes the top fertile layer of the soil, bringing in a layer that is not good enough. We have those sort of challenges, most especially around the southeast. And that's why it's a huge struggle in the southeast to be involved in agriculture as they should be. Clogging of waterways, it pollutes the water bodies with chemicals, sediments accumulate, they raise the water levels in the rivers and streams, and then it results in flooding, and that also affects the soil. Air pollution, dust particles taken into the air resulting in air pollution. Some of these chemicals, pesticides and petroleums, can be extremely hazardous when inhaled. Desertification, it transforms a habitable region into deserts, leading to loss of biodiversity. We will talk about that in the next class. And degradation of the soil and altering of the ecosystem. It also affects infrastructural projects such as dam embankments and drainages. In terms of water resources, oceans contain about 97.5% of Earth's water in saline conditions. Imagine that of all the water in the earth, it's just 2.5% of water that is fresh water, and we are not even managing that well. Most fresh water is even frozen. Again, that is 1.97% as polar and glacier ice. On land, fresh water occurs as groundwater, 0.5%. Lakes and rivers, 0.02%. Soil, 0.1%. Atmosphere, 0.001%. And so the distribution of fresh water is geographically uneven from nation to nation and even from region to region within the country. I think we can see that in Nigeria. We're lucky to be along the banks of the River Niger and River Benue. There are several other communities that don't have those sort of resources. And so it's uneven. Some countries are even landlocked, don't have any water body passing through them. So globally, 70% of total water use is accounted for agriculture, 10% for domestic and municipal supplies, and 20% by various industries. This Atlas report of 2023 shows that 1/4 of global population face extremely high water stress each year, regularly using almost their entire available supply, 80%. By 2050, about 1 billion more people are expected to live with extremely high water stress. So that is the challenge we have with water resources. We have very small, very low amount of water for our environment, for ourselves. I was in Canada. I lived there on and off for about 5 years. And I remember in 2024, there was an announcement during the summer that if the rate at which they use water in their environment, in their houses, for washing, for bathing, and all of that, the city of Calgary would not be able to meet the water demand. And so we're advised, if you want to bathe once a day. If you don't have to bathe, just clean up. If you want to flush. So that's even for developed countries, those are the challenges they have with water. In terms of groundwater, the current Minister of Water Resources is from the University of Agriculture, College of Engineering. And we're having a discussion with him recently. In Abuja now, there is indiscriminate drilling of boreholes, and it's affecting our groundwater in more ways than we can imagine. And so what we're trying to say is what we face, the challenges we face with water resources availability is huge. We're already seeing that we're dealing with less than 2.5% of fresh water in the world. And then imagine the challenges that are a threat to our water system. And so we need to think about providing clean drinking water and air, where rainfall plays a role in clearing air of particulates, regulating climate and flood, decomposing waste, controlling pests and diseases by provision of clean water. Some plants can be pollinated by water and supporting recreation and culture. The water ecosystem services are essential for human well-being and building biodiversity conservation. So in terms of drought and aridification, which is natural, the world is experiencing longer lasting droughts, record-setting dry spells that have gripped East Africa and Western United States, places like California, Arizona, you rarely even have any rains there. Mismanagement of groundwater, overexploitation and extraction. I just gave an example of the indiscriminate boreholes being drilled in Abuja at the moment. I live in an estate there in Abuja, or my family lives in Abuja. And virtually every house on my street has a borehole. Ideally, we should be able to come together on that street and drill a maximum of 2 boreholes and share. Because what we are doing is we're drawing water, it will affect the structure, and someday we might have a catastrophe. There's a report I can share with you how the city of Egypt is thinking of relocation in the next few decades because of acute water shortages they are believing they would experience. And that has to do with mismanagement of groundwater. Improvement in drilling technology may lead to its sustainable extractions in parts of the world, such as India. FAO estimates that 10% of the global grain harvest is being produced by depleting groundwater resources. So again, this has to do with agriculture and its use of groundwater. Saltwater intrusion. Intensive irrigation can lead to a rise in the water table, siphoning salt into the soil and the roots of plants, affecting their growths. In places where irrigation is predominant, we can have a challenge where salt water sorts of cripples back into the soil. And of course, you know how detrimental salt water is to plants. And when you have those sort of effects, you have issues of food production and food scarcity, and so on and so forth. Overuse of groundwater can combine with sea level rise to cause salt water to penetrate coastal groundwater aquifers. And this damages crops and their yields and affects our drinking water supply. So what are the threats to water resources? Pollution, ground and surface water. For surface water, just go to the banks of River Benue or any bank around you and you see the sort of discharges into those places. It's very strange in Africa that we feel that disposal of waste should be along the bank. And then they are now fed back into the river, messing up the entire waterways. Sewage, oil discharge in the Niger Delta. We've heard of what the oil industry has done to communities upon communities, especially with the Ogoni reports. My PhD students, one of the main things they studied this was the UNEP reports and seeing the effects that oil industrialization has on water. These were mainly maritime people that were into fishing. At the end of the day, because we want economic growth, communities were destroyed, and it will take generations to recover what was lost either to the land or to water. Pollution can also be caused by floods. We've experienced that in Makurdi and in several other places prone to flood. Water, air, and land pollution contribute to the reduction of water quality. Fertilizer runoff, when heavy rainfalls happens, it causes algae blooms in lakes, killing fish. Land degradation. Humanity has altered more than 70% of the Earth's land area, causing what the Global Land Outlook called an unparalleled environmental degradation. So in many places, the ability of soils to store and filter water is waning, and it's harder to grow crops and raise livestock. If current land degradation trends continue this century, scientists predict disruptions to food supplies. We're already experiencing food supplies across the world, if not for China and a few other Southeast Asian countries. I think there would be a food crisis across the world as we speak. So scientists are saying if we continue at this rates, there will be major disruptions to food supply. Vegetation destruction and deforestation. Again, destruction of forests by fire, logging, and farming has a tremendous effect on the soil, causing increased evaporation of water from the soil. So that's a few things we have discussed on water resources. The next would be forests, another very important natural resource. Forests containing plants and trees occupy 1/3 of the Earth's total land area. Our forests are on lands, and climatic conditions and species result in the following types of forests. We have tropical, evergreen, partly evergreen, deciduous, dry forests. We also have forests that have water bodies, soils, rock, and more of non-living constituents. And then a few extremely inaccessible forest lands. All forests have been impacted by human activity. Forest cover globally has been decreasing, particularly in developing nations. So we're losing about 4.7 is this mega hectares per annum of soil, especially in developing nations between 2010 to 2020. And the forest ecosystem is a storehouse of biodiversity and deliver vital ecological services. It can also enhance the economic and ecological values of landscape. Like I said, when we look at the forests in Nigeria, they haven't been protected. I don't even think there are laws that are implemented on how to preserve our soil. If you are hunting in developed world or even in African countries, you would have a hunting license, and there are rules. But here, we have some of those laws, but implementation is zero to nothing. So people fell trees as the ones. People decide to burn. It used to be very popular around here, burning bushes to catch animals and all of that. We also need wood for construction and several other things. So in terms of ecosystem service, provisioning, water, food, fruits and nuts, timber and firewood, medicines, herbs, oils, drugs, industrial products, resins, latexes, all come from wood sources. It also provides regulation. When you have a lot of forest, it acts as flood control in terms of preserving both soil and water conservation, water and earth purification, pollination, climate regulation, in terms of the CO2 that it takes up the trees, prevention of droughts, protection from wind, solar radiation, heat, and noise. So we should know that this is critical. It also supports biodiversity, habitat, photosynthesis, and soil formation. The most biodiverse ecosystem you can find is the forests. Most of the animals are preserved. It's also cultural. It gives form of education when we are able to know more about our environment, know more about the trees, know more about what happens in that ecosystem. It serves as a sort of education. Recreation is also very important here. Even down here in Makodi, I know this is a global lecture, and I know it happens in your cities too. The parks we used to have with the trees have been turned into drinking parks, joints, and the trees are no longer there. So that is a form of recreation, beauty of a city. Driving through a forest gives you some sort of aesthetics. Countries like Malaysia, where we got our oil palms from, you're driving in Malaysia, you can travel 40, 50 kilometers of oil palms on either sides of the roads. This is a country that got their first seedlings from Nigeria in the late 70s. And that is what they have done to forests in their communities. You go to Egypt, you travel through in between cities, and you see the amazing forests that they have consciously preserved. And we rarely have that around us. So a lot of the politicians are not educated enough. A lot of bureaucrats are not educated enough to understand. So that is why we are teaching this and interacting so that we can enlighten our communities on what we need to do and how the forest provides services for the world. In terms of threats to forest resources, forest fires in arid areas and during droughts in non-arid areas, man also has effects on the forest health, growth, and regeneration. So we're talking of deforestation due to expansion of agriculture. When the village is growing, when the family is growing, the available farmland is no longer enough to be shared. So they move into the forest in the name of expansion of agric. When states, governments decide to say, oh, let's have an expanded agric this, and they decide to invade the forest without replacing these trees. Urbanization, transport, infrastructure, these are all due to human activity. Unsustainable forestry, excess extraction of timber for commercial uses. This should be regulated and planned if we want it to be sustained. Unsustainable extraction of non-timber forest produce. Things that are in the forest, we think we can keep taking, and it affects the forest resources. Pollution, industrialization. You go around the Yandev, and when you see the effect of the cement plants on that environment, lots of industrialization has that kind of effect. Then malicious fire set by human beings. That is also a challenge. In the US, you've had those sort of things happen where wildfires, and for days and weeks, in some cases, you see forests being lost. What is the impact of loss of forest resources? Deforestation has increased the soil erosion and reduced soil fertility. In drier areas, deforestation results in desertification. And that's what we see is happening in the north. Habitat destruction, there's loss of biodiversity because the forest can no longer preserve that environment for different species, and they are lost. I think one of the questions we can ask ourselves is, in the last couple of years, if you live around the forest, what animals Are you not seeing anymore? Because forests have been lost. In Jos, many years ago, we used to see monkeys all around, but when you lose some of these resources, you see these species are lost. Extinction of plants, animals, and microbes. Even microbes can also be lost. They are all affected when we threaten forest resources. It also threatens indigenous communities living in forests, reduction in accessibility of forest products, decrease in oxygen released by plants during photosynthesis. As you know, there's an increase in carbon dioxide level as a result of the felling of trees and the loss of vegetation in the forest. A lot of our rural communities fell trees to burn wood. Again, that leads to pollution. It also lowers water level, owing to more runoff and increased use of underground water intensity in the incidences of droughts. Shortage of fuel wood, weakening of economy. That's why there's a lot of interest in biochars and wood waste, using wood waste to produce fuel. That's another very interesting biosolids or solid fuels instead of felling trees for that purpose. And so basically we've covered the forest, and we've also covered land and water. In the next class, we'll deal with biodiversity. Are there questions? Are there contributions? The idea behind this class is not necessarily to teach you anything new. Of course, we come from different diverse backgrounds, but it's to give us an overview so that we see how interconnected our water, our natural resources are, and we need to think in a systemic way to solve problems, anticipate problems in our communities, and then work towards solutions to these challenges. I want us to keep a very open mind. I believe that at the end of your degree in environmental sustainability, you will approach environmental issues more professionally. You would understand that some of the political challenges or even criminal challenges we are facing are a result of not thinking outside the box many years ago to solve the challenges we have. And so let's keep an open mind to learn, to share experiences. I believe even in this class, we have very experienced people in these areas. And if we keep an open mind, we would gain a lot of experience from each other. Thank you very much. Let's have questions. If there are questions, we'll take, and then we'll take a break and be back in the afternoon. I'm taking this course with Professor Rufus Shato. Unfortunately, he's not available today and tomorrow. He has an engagement as we speak. He's in Abuja tomorrow. So I'll take Monday and Tuesday, and then half of Wednesday before he concludes the class. I can see Jennifer Ngodo Agbe. Your hand is up. You have the floor. I will share this material immediately after my lecture today.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Good morning, sir.
Morning, please.
Sir, as an environmentalist, you spoke about how your environment in Abuja, that almost every house has a borehole. We know the issues of climate change already. And I had a similar case in Delta where every flat had their borehole. Knowing fully
Pardon,
well
in
that
where?
in Delta, where almost
Okay.
every flat has their borehole, it will look as if it's not a problem. But let's bring it down to Benue State, where we have a river Benue. We have a water plant. I don't think what I'm saying is political, but please bear with me, sir. So we have the Benue Water Works here, but we're still having issues of water supply in Makodi. And of recent, we had a situation where I don't know if I can't really place the Benue Water Works we have here. I would say it's not functioning very well, but we have cases where maybe people are drilling water, selling water now, causing more pollutions like sachet water in the environment. And no, as an environmentalist, this is my question, sir. How can I tell somebody not to drill borehole in their environment when we have the river Benue here and the Benue Water Works here and the wells are drying up? How can I tell somebody not to drill his or her water in his or her borehole in their compound?
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. I
Yes.
I want this to be very participatory. I have my own. When I say that I have the Minister of Water Resources, who is a former colleague, even as a group of people who are experienced in this area got me into a technical group to give him a proposal. As we speak, there is no national borehole policy.
Okay.
People just wake up and drill boreholes. You need to have a permit from government to drill boreholes. In developed nations, you don't just wake up one day. You bought the land, but you can't sink a well without government following the regulations. So it's a systems problem. That's why we need to approach it from a systemic. For example, I'm not a geologist, but maybe the geologists in the house can help us. They are supposed to be meters apart based on geological surveys that permits how much, based on that particular area, what is the distance in terms of drilling of boreholes. So government needs to understand for fast moving, for fast growing population, there needs to be an estimate of population. What do we need to solve this problem? Perhaps if they need to get a dam around that area that solves the problem for that community, they would do that instead of leaving it in the hands of everybody to do what they want. That's what systems thinking involves. And that's where the developed world has an edge over us. And that's why we need these experts to sit down and advise government on the path to go. Yes, there's a lot of corruption when you talk of water availability in a place like Makodi. Again, in the 80s, we had tap water across Makodi, but not the same
Yes.
population anymore. How much of that infrastructure has been expanded? So it's a whole lot of issues. Do we even know the real population of Makodi as we speak? Do we know which area needs more water? So they are all interconnected issues, but I would want contributions from the class. You can just unmute and speak since I don't have, we have just 3 minutes in this class. So what do you think should be the solution? I expect that you would be able to, how many are we in this class? Form groups. I will give some discussion questions so we can have more robust discussions on this, maybe as a revision for this class. I would advise my questions won't be direct questions, they'll be more of applied questions, so that having an understanding, we can look at how, for example, this question you just asked, as a class, what do you think we should do? And we use some case studies for discussion. So I would take in more contributions on this particular question. Okay, Ajoko Philemon, let's take your question, and then perhaps you can drop the questions and we can use that as a, drop the questions in the chat box. Let's just take Ajoko.
So am I the one that's supposed to drop the question or the others?
All the people that had hands up, they should drop their questions because our time is actually up, so that we take a break and come back in the afternoon. Is that okay?
It's okay, sir.
Okay. Okay, see you later in the afternoon then.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I'll share this on the WhatsApp group right away.
Okay.
Thank you.
You don't know.